Inducted into the Sport Australia Hall of Fame in 1991, James Bartholomew Cummings, better known as Bart, first experienced the thrill of a Melbourne Cup win at 23 years of age, when in 1950 he strapped the homebred Comic Court for his father Jim Cummings. His training feat to date of 12 Melbourne Cup winners and 5 Quinellas has earned him the title of Cups King.
Bart has won 12. He has won his 12th Melbourne Cup. He's 81 next Friday. It's one of the richest stories we've ever seen in the race's history.
Bart, do you realise what a legend you are in Australian racing?
Not really, but there's been a fair bit of publicity the last couple of years because we have a habit of winning the Melbourne Cup. As I explained, it's a nice habit to get into. And because of that, there's a fair bit of gesture about whether I'm a legend or whatever I might be.
But you're like Australian royalty, really.
The Queen's here at the moment. She's in Lake Burley Griffin in Canberra looking at the flowers. It was on TV this morning.
Are you surprised she hasn't come to see you?
I've had lunch and dinner with her in the past when she's been here. I met her at the races. She's a great race goer and she's a great ambassador for racing, really, worldwide.
We see the colours of the Australian flag very much associated with you. You're an Australian man through and through, I feel.
Best country in the world, and good for racing and good for people like yourself to travel around and come and see what a good country like we've got here and share it with you.
What do you love about horse racing?
They don't answer back. They're all good friends of mine. The kinder you are to horses, the better they perform. That's the way I look at things, and a great benefit to my success. Without them, I'd be nothing. How's that?
It's pretty good.
Well, it's
Have you
true.
always loved them?
Oh, yeah, my father was a trainer, and back in the 1920s. I was born in 27, and he was right through the Depression days. He bred horses. He bred instrumental in breeding a champion in Comic Court. The war came, and unfortunately all the trainers in South Australia had to join, and the racing was closed down, and munitions factories, that's where the most munitions were made in South Australia, because it was further south from the war zones and the safest place to have it, and all the trainers and jockeys had to join the munitions. And in that time he left and went to Melbourne and came here, and he's been a great advocate and advisor to me.
I mean, you started, as many people do in racing, as a strapper, and weren't you allergic to hay?
Yeah, we went to a doctor in North Terrace, and I think it was 14 quid we had to pay, Dr. D.L. Barlow in North Terrace, and when he did all the tests, and he said, you're allergic to horsehair, chaff, oats and everything. He said, keep away from horses and you'll never look back. Walking out, I said to Dad, we did our dough. And I've been in horses ever since, and I've overcome the thing that caused the asthma. At that time, asthma was never... I recall when the doctor used to come to me when I was a young fella, and the doctor, I heard him telling my father, he said, we now got a name for this problem. It's called asthma. At that time, they worldwide didn't know what it was.
Well, I'm an asthmatic, and so I have a Ventolin inhaler. Do you have inhalers and things?
You want to borrow mine?
No. I may need it by the end of the interview.
You'll be right.
Well, we'll see how we get on. But, I mean, Bart, you're known as the Cup King for obvious reasons because of all your Melbourne Cup success. What is it about you that makes you a great trainer? What are your qualities as a trainer, would you say?
Probably I like to feed horses as best the best possible method of giving them protein, which is what you need to build muscle and strength when you're in a challenging race. So the higher protein feed you can feed the horse, and as much that they'll eat I give, and I regulate the work depending on how much they eat.
What's the mixture of the food that you give your horses?
You name the grain and we give it.
Right.
Oats, maize, beans, barley, about 10 others I've forgotten about we use, but that's the better than this modern pellets, whatever they use. The bloke that's making the pellets is making the money, and the poor horse owners are losing their money. That's the theory I've got with this modern technology, and a lot of the trainers don't know how to mix feeds like we've been taught back in the 1920s and so on. So they've been brought up this new way of doing it, and they'll have to suffer, won't they?
And there's a sort of old cliche in racing that the more you can feed them, the more you can work them, and the more you can work them, the fitter they are.
The more muscle they have,
yeah.
And the cleaner their wind are, yeah, correct. Providing everything in the horse is A1.
So would you say then that feed is the most important thing to make a racehorse run as fast as it can?
Providing it's got the right conformation, the right the stud book giving you the right bloodlines and so on, and if there are Group 1 winners in the family, you need all the help you can get before you start. But having got all those attributes in the pedigree, the conformation, the long arm, short cannon, just the right angle of the pastern, then the feed comes last, and that's how you can improve a Group 1 horse better than the other Group 1 horse that's not getting that. How's that explained?
Well, it's fascinating, and I could go on for hours just talking to you about that. But I remember watching Far Lap, and bloodlines was an important word throughout the movie Far Lap. Do you look at pedigrees enormously yourself?
Yeah, well, yes, we do. We do research before a sale. I was instrumental in getting an empty page between each number in the catalogue, so that when in the auctioneer's catalogue, they got the seller's list of how good all the horses were. But the buyer wants to know how many bad ones are there as well. So I go through every one and what they won, the ones that didn't win, how much they paid for the ones that didn't win, and now that's become a regular, pretty well, there's even a book published on what I've been doing for 30 years. You can buy a book now that tells you most of the things that I write up myself.
So it's almost like, obviously we have black type these days, whereas if you get placed in a group race, you'll have a black type sort of signal in the program book of a horse sale, and it sounds like what you're saying is you took that even further.
All the losers, all the horses that cost 700,000 or more, and they haven't won a race, that'll appear in my list. So that'll give you an idea if the mare's as good as the auctioneers are telling you in their catalogue. See what I mean?
Yeah. You're
getting both sides, the seller and the buyer.
So the good and the bad sort of thing.
So I've got to have my buyer's list as well as their list is all right. So, but when I also, every horse is sold, I put the price what it cost and what it won. If it won nothing, that's it. So you see it all.
It gets bigger and better every year, and it's an absolute privilege to be at Flemington today.
What do you love about the Melbourne Cup?
My father won it in 1950 with a comic court, and I thought it'd be nice to be able to achieve what the father did, and I haven't stopped doing it. When I did it, I thought, well, I'd try this again, and here we are, 12.
But we see you after the race, and I've almost stood next to you after a Melbourne Cup winner, although you won't know it.
I didn't recognise you.
No, I'm easily forgettable. But
I wouldn't say that. Now, Matt, behave yourself.
but you know, when you get home that evening, how does Bart Cummings think about the day or celebrate the day, or
Usually you get a free meal with the owner. He takes me out to, usually he goes to Silk's restaurant down in the hotel here, and he gets the best bargain he can find. He's very careful with the quid, and everyone has, all his mates have a good time. It's about the only time he spends, and I think, oh no, but anyway.
But from your personal I mean, do you sit there thinking, I am the Cup King?
No way. I got helpers, the jockeys, and I can't. It's not a thing you do on your own. It's a group, and you got to. You can't buy respect. You got to earn it. And I look after staff best I can, and never abuse them. And if they make a mistake, I get them to apologise. And this includes the foreman as well, because if they upset the staff, you haven't got the confidence behind the team like you would expect. So it's a big team effort, I'm telling you.
But what are you like as a character, Bart Cummings? Because, you know, during this interview, I'm thinking I only have to ask the wrong question, and this is going to go pear-shaped. So
far, you've been all right.
Yeah, well, so far we've only been going about a minute. But as a trainer, are you a fiery trainer? I mean, if I do make a mistake and I'm one of your strappers, am I going to hear the wrath of Bart Cummings?
No, I leave it to the foreman to sort that out.
Yeah, but that sounds horrific. What does that involve?
Well, I don't get upset. The foreman is in charge, and he's responsible to get keep that harmony in the camp.
So you wouldn't be a man to shout?
I shout as much as Chapman. Coffee or a cup of tea or beer or something, but that's the only way we shout.
Right. Well, let's talk.
We don't lose our temper.
No. Okay. Well, I'll believe you. Thousands wouldn't. Let's talk about the Cup winners. I mean, Light Fingers started in '65. We had Galileo Red-Handed, Think Big, won it a couple of times, Gold and Black, Hyperno, Kingston Royal, Let's Elope, Saintly, Rogan, Josh and Viewed. You'll, of course, know all those.
See, you've got a great memory.
I know, it's amazing what a bit of paper can tell you.
I can't remember them myself.
If someone had to take 11 of them away and you were left with one, which one would you keep?
Well, they're all been good mates of mine, but I suppose the most ability was an equal group. Galileo was an outstanding horse, and I think, from memory, he's probably the only horse that's won a Toorak Handicap, Caulfield Cup, Melbourne Cup, and a Sydney Cup in the one racing season.
Wow.
Still.
Yeah.
And I bought him in New Zealand for about 370 guineas, and mind you, that time the depression was just about still in recession. It wasn't quite in recession, and values were very low, and the prize money, I think the first Melbourne Cup we won was, I think it was only about 10 grand, 10,000. So things have gone up, as you can understand. It's improved with the introduction of TAB. So Chester Manifold was on the VRC committee, and he introduced the TAB into Australia. It originally started in New Zealand and this part of the world, and that racing improved a great deal since then.
So that was Galileo in 1966. You like him? Would he be your favourite?
Well, another one I bred myself was Saintly. He was a very accomplished gelding.
Oscar Schindler struggling. Saintly hit the lead in the Melbourne Cup. He drew a length in front of Nothing Like a Dame. Count Chivas. Skybow running on. Saintly in front for Darren Beedman. Bart Cummings has got his 10th Melbourne Cup. Saintly's going to win the Melbourne Cup for Darren Beedman and Bart Cummings. Saintly first.
Unfortunately, he injured a tendon and that was in the time before stem cells were introduced into the veterinary industry, and I've had 100% success with that stem cells, but then it wasn't around, so he never raced again, and a lot of them didn't.
You've not only trained 12 Melbourne Cup winners, but also in 5 races you've trained the first and second in the Cup. I mean, do you ever feel that you ought to be trying to give someone else a bit of a chance?
Well, very often when first and second, I beat myself. Sometimes I back the second horse. So no one's infallible in this racing game.
Do you have a bet, Bart?
Very little nowadays. It gets too complicated.
In what way?
Because of one's success, the prices are not usually what you'd expect. Sometimes we've been fluked a couple of 60 to 1 winners, like Viewed, I think he was pretty good odds. But you know, it's hard to be confident when they're that price.
But you see, there'll be people watching this thinking, surely Bart Cummings, the greatest trainer arguably in the history of Australian horse racing, he must know whether his horse he sends to the races is going to win or not.
Well, I know they're trying, and as some pundits say, they become very trying if they don't win. What am I laughing at my own jokes for? I shouldn't, should I?
Well, someone's got to, eh, Bart?
Absolutely, yeah.
How's racing changed? I mean, as you said, you started off, in 53 with your licence. How's Australian racing changed for you in the years since then?
Well, with the introduction to TAB, prize money is escalated. You see where the countries where the TAB alone, there's no bookmakers or corporate bookmakers like Singapore, Hong Kong, Japan, the greatest prize money in the world. So there's a story about corporate bookmakers, and they give nothing back into the race clubs to create a higher level of prize money. So it's so obvious. But so why don't someone regulate all that? There is a court case going on now in Racing New South Wales, and they won the case, but the bookmakers appealed, and that's due out. That decision will be due out 3 or 4 weeks, which means they would get 1.5% of the bookies' turnover, and if that's successful, that will help a lot.
So the financials have changed, but what about training a racehorse? Do you train a racehorse differently in 2011 to what you did in 1953?
No, I don't. Everything's the same. Nothing's changed in that regard. Why would it?
Is jockeyship better?
It'd be better when these whip rules weren't introduced by the greenies, although I think an excessive use of it can be criticised, can be the steward's job to regulate it, but I do think in some cases it's overused, over-supervised, yeah.
We've got absolute sort of anarchy in the UK over the use of the whip.
Well, there's an old saying, spare the rod and spoil the child. The same applies to a horse. We were given a horse many years ago to train from some other trainer. This is going back about 25, 30 years. And when you went into the sun yard, we got pretty good weather here in Australia, and we got these yards where the horses go out of the willow trees and in the daytime. And when you went out in the afternoon to catch the horse, you turn around and lash out both hind legs, you know. So it used to take me half an hour to catch the horse to take it for a walk. It was a chestnut stallion. So I thought about it, and I went and spoke to Stan Boyd, and he was the stable. We were renting some boxes off him, me and my father, years ago. I was a strapper for Dad. And I said, have you got a stock whip, one of those old stock whips? He said, there's one in this box, the old box down the end. I'll go and get it. So I got the stock whip, it was all there. I opened the gate, got the whip, the horse. Instead of when the horse saw the whip, he looked at it. I just stood there, did nothing. I thought he was going to lash out He didn't lash out. He walked around and he's put his head on my chest. Now, I don't know what the story, what the history was. All I know was he had a bad behaviour, but he respected the whip. And from then on, I'd just go out each day and finally didn't have to do it. He knew that he'd get it. Someone must have gave him a hiding once. I'm not sure what happened, but he come out, and from then on he's completely different. So there's a story. And 2.5 weeks later, he won the Moonee Valley Cup, the same horse, completely different. Then he got down his bumpers and whatever, and we had to give him a break, a spell, and we didn't see it since.
Could you ever imagine a situation in Australia where the whip wasn't allowed? Could you imagine racing without a whip?
Well, that could only happen with the greenies, and I think you can go to extremes with that. No, I think the same with children. Why are kids running around the street now, hooligans and drinking at night? Why aren't the parents controlling them like they used to? I mean, school teachers are the same. They spare the rod and spoil. There's got to be a control where they're not frightened. If they're not frightened of the whip, they're not frightened of anything.
People will argue in racing that the whip is there to essentially make a noise, to encourage the horse to run faster. The greenies, as you call them, would argue that it's abusing them, hurting the horse. Does the whip hurt a horse?
They come back, there's not a mark on them, it doesn't hurt them. And they expect it, they accept it. Mm. So if they're not horse people, they wouldn't understand.
What about racing abroad, Bart? We don't see you much in the UK.
Why is that?
Talk to me about it.
Well, you go there for a holiday. It's a lovely place to have a holiday, nice people, nice hotels. They wear funny hats at the races, which I don't think they're living in the past. That was
not all the races, Bart.
That was 200 years ago.
Well, Alaska. It's not
hats this high. I mean, what would you do with them?
Nice Panama.
You tip it upside down, you make a pot plant out of it.
Well, you put a nice hat on you, it might improve you. But
never wore a hat in my life.
No?
No.
Not even a baseball cap?
Never.
I could see you in one.
Yeah, I used to play cricket without a hat.
Right. OK, well, look, you can't dislike British racing because of hats.
I don't dislike racing. I go there for a holiday, mate.
Right. Well, why didn't you bring some of your superstars over to challenge for our great races?
The prize
British
money...
racing's the best in the world, I'll have you know.
It might be, used to be.
I don't want to finish you off.
It might be used to be, but the money's there. Why leave the money to go over to a country where... What are you racing for?
Well, because racing is all about money.
Honour and glory. You can't live in honour and glory. You meet lovely people. You meet the Queen. I don't mind that either. But the point is, you can't make a living out of racing if you leave Australia or the countries where bookmakers are in control.
But let me put this to you. Wouldn't a horse have more prestige winning a race at Royal Ascot than on Derby Day at Flemington?
Depends. If you want to make a stallion of him, maybe for Coolmore or somebody wanted to make a stallion, they may be able to earn more money per service fee by doing that. Apart from that, prize money is not there. You think of what I said.
Just have a look at this. It's just beautiful to watch. So you think wins by about 3 on the line, Desperado.
So you think on the far side, calling on all his reserves. Snow Fairy on the near side. They're running up towards the finish. And so you think will win the Champion Stakes and his 8th Group 1.
So you think he's chased all the while by Rewilding, who stays well inside the last. So you think is all out. Here comes Rewilding on the stand side. And Frankie Dettori, he's running down the Aussie champ. And Rewilding gets up to win the Prince of Wales Stakes.
So you think. We were led to believe he was the greatest horse on planet Earth. He's clearly a very, very good horse since he's come to Ireland and raced in Europe. But
he's a very good horse here, that's all I know. And
do you feel he's fulfilled his potential, though?
Well, he did here. He hasn't there.
Why?
Don't know. I think he's homesick.
Would you like him back?
Long as he's not raced anymore over there, because he may have with all the different tactics that's applied there.
You don't like the pacemakers they're using?
Pacemakers and whipped out to catch the pacemaker. It's not unnecessary, it doesn't make sense. And if you love the horse and like the horse, you wouldn't involve in that.
How would you race, so you think, to get the best out of him? In a 1.25 mile race, what's his perfect trip?
Well, when you watch the race, he used to run about third or fourth on the bit. You accelerate coming to the turn if you had to. You wouldn't on a long straight. You wouldn't go early. Wait until the furlong post, and you'd outsprint him. He had a great turn of foot towards the end of the race, so there's no need to overdo it early.
His best distance?
Whatever you're training for. If you're training for 2 mile, which I hadn't the last run he had here, he did very well to run third, because my theory always is to win a 2 mile race, they must have at least one race over 1.5 miles. And he was getting prepared for the Cox Plate the second time, and he avoided the 1.5 mile race, but did win the Cox Plate, and he won the race on the 1.25 miles on Derby Day, and he was unbeaten in all the starts that season. So as a last race, he won the Melbourne Cup, and Americana beat him. I thought it would, because he looked terrific, the French horse, and he was probably well, the jockey on Americana is very, very clever, very bright. I told my bloke to follow him, and what happened is he followed us, and we went a little bit soon, a 1.5 miles out, a furlong and a half out in the straight. He went forward, and the other horses followed him and beat him on the line by about a length.
Were you hurt as a man when So You Think left? Were you very attached to that horse?
Well, I didn't own him, I only trained him, so it's up to the owners to do what they want to do. If they love the horse more than money, the horse would have stayed here. If money was more important than the horse, they took the money. So that's what happened. So that's it.
You've trained now for a long time, Bart. What is there anything in racing that you don't like at the moment, that if
I don't like losing.
Change? Right. Have you ever liked losing?
No, of course not. You try your hardest. Now, I've had enough of you. That's the finish. That's it. Righto, boys.